Take three people, A, B, and C. All three of them go to the same institution. Two of them come out relatively unchanged with respect to their attachment to their respective cultures. One person comes out spitting venom on his culture and with a sense of self-loathing. All three are being subjected to the same kind of education, but the impact seems to be different on different people. The reason is twofold. One, the other two groups are effectively producing institutions, and which is to say societal institutions as well as family-based institutions, which manage to put a certain filter which is not changed by the education system. Whereas as far as the majority community is concerned, it has effectively outsourced the value of introduction of any kind of value-based filter entirely to the school system, entirely to the rest of the society. The institutions or the traditional institutions which are supposed to give you the rooting in your culture have effectively been emasculated by the state. And the family, in turn, from a joint family system to the nuclear family system, its ability to provide cultural mooring as far as its children are concerned has already been reduced. Independent of that, they take a lot of pride in the degree of freedom that they give to their children as opposed to the kind of values that they impart to the children. When you have these fundamental problems, you are producing such intransigent people despite the system and in spurts, not with a certain degree of regularity. Because at the end of the day, it's a question of how many such intransigent people you're able to produce on a regular basis, who keep taking a shot at the system to keep changing it on an incremental basis on a regular basis. Because this is not something that can be done in 1 year or 2 years. One generation needs to produce someone who takes a serious shot at the system, changes it in one way. Then that has to work. You've had Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, you've had Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and then you've had Shri Narendra Modi. You started off with Azharuddin, then you went to Saurav Ganguly, then you tried with Rahul Dravid. From there, you moved gradually towards Dhoni. And then you have come to Virat Kohli. Can you see the increase in confidence over successive generations? That happens everywhere. That applies in every aspect of life. So therefore, you should be looking at a vision which is fairly long-term, and you must be investing in such institutions and individuals, because it is institutions that produce such individuals and those individuals themselves who build such institutions in the future. It's a cycle that feeds off itself. What you have done as a society is to undercut your autonomous institutions by making them completely dependent on the state, and I mean temples in this regard and the mathas in this regard. And the society is also more than happy to embrace secularism because you see, it has traded English for culture. So therefore, your ability to produce intransigent people has gone down. I'll give you the lamest possible example or the crudest possible example on this particular subject in the most, let's say, outwardly fashion. Ask yourself how many people have the self-confidence, because we constantly expect women to wear saris. I challenge the men to wear dhotis and walk in an uber elitist mall. Do that first. Because when you are capable of doing that, then you have the right to pontificate to women what they are supposed to wear to preserve culture. Okay, that's one. Second, compare this with the confidence of other people who comfortably wear whatever they can and whatever they are expected of in any place. Wo airport ho, ya mall ho, ya cinema hall. That is where is the problem of inferiority complex. That is colonial consciousness which I am trying to highlight here. Understood? You can't seem to address the basic question of dressing and clothing. I would like to ask this simple question: how many people wear the kumkum or the vibhuti and get out of the house, but the moment they enter their office spaces, they wipe it off? I've seen so many people do that. I know of so many people who do that. That's not the case with other people. Whether he has to wear the topi or the pagadi, he is very comfortable wearing that. I respect them for it. I admire them for it, 100%. You can do the mulyankan later, ye sahi hai, galat hai, wo achhe hai, bure hai, that's a secondary issue. At least he is living by the principles that he believes in. He is more than comfortable, he is more than happy to cock the snook at the West and to basically say, aapka modernity gaya, tel lene, hum aise hi rahenge. He is very comfortable making that statement. You as a society don't have that confidence. And it doesn't matter whether the dress is knee length or ankle length, it doesn't matter to him at all. He is comfortable wearing that cloth. Take a look at what's happening in Afghanistan and tell me that technology will trump over ideology. No, patience and ideology and conviction will always win. It's a question of the time cycle that you're interested in investing. They were ready to wait for 20 years. History has rewarded them. You may not like them. You may sit and point out whatever their flaws may be. But ultimately, after 20 years, with patience, they have succeeded against the sole surviving superpower with its hyper-technology. Draws a leaf out of that page. Because when I say this, "Arey re, aa gaya Hindu Taliban." No. I am saying there is always something to be learnt even from the worst of your detractors and enemies or adversaries. Invest in your institutions. Preserve your institutions which are capable of preserving your way of life regardless of the ebb and flow of politics. Because politics is temporary, civilization is permanent. So if you keep your priorities right and you invest in those institutions which have proven to keep alive your way of life, despite the ravages of time and history, you will continue to produce people who will resist and who will bring back your way of life. Every time we have had a problem, some person, some rishi has come out to help a vibhuti. Sri Aurobindo effectively called Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj a vibhuti, as someone without whom this entire civilization would have effectively seen itself being pushed to the verge of extinction and wiped out. Such vibhutis have been created from time to time because there were institutions to produce them. Because at that time, you were resisting the sword, and the only way to resist the sword is not to offer your neck, but to draw the sword. But subsequently comes the guy who teaches you the value of tolerance and who effectively says, you and I can coexist. But you know what? You need to change a bit. So I will introduce, with the noblest of intentions, which of course pave the way to hell, reform. And how do I do that? What you read is outdated. So let's replace your patashalas with English education system and the colonial education system, and let's change the language policy. If you have your civilizational nerve centers which have the autonomy to run their own institutions of education, I dare say whether we have the solution or not, we'll at least have the, let's say, a better group of people with much more confidence and better solutions to offer because they have been trained in that system. I am not saying kill English. I am never going to say kill English. I am saying let it be just one of the, let's say, languages of communication, but it can't be the medium of instruction. There's a distinction between knowing a language and treating that as a medium of instruction. But you can't just change the medium of instruction by retaining the very same content, because then it is deadlier that you're consuming Western education in your mother tongue, which makes the impact even deadlier. Therefore, the change has to start with content as well as the medium in which that content is disseminated. Which is why for every generation, whether it's from 98 to 2004 or 2014 to 2021, we're saying education policy, education policy. I mean, like a stuck gramophone. That's an old reference anyway. We keep saying, please change the education policy. But some people seem to be taking pride in the fact that they've not changed a single page in history books. So when this is the sense of pride from which you operate, what do you do then? You can't actually tout this as a badge of honor. According to me, it's a badge of shame. Tomorrow, when it comes to a political platform, you're more than comfortable talking about how Marxists have distorted history, but you're no more in opposition to keep making this statement. What have you done is the specific question that you should be asking yourself. सत्ता आपके हाथ में है, तो आपने सत्ता का प्रयोग इन विषयों में कैसे किया? इसका जवाब दीजिए. That's a legitimate question to ask. If the other side asks he is anti-national, but I'm pro-civilization, I'm asking this question. What is wrong with the question? I am asking the question that kindly don't behave like you are the ruling party in opposition. That can't be the way you operate.